So I recently did a video about how America is lying about the Uighur genocide in China. In it, I mentioned a BBC documentary on the centers where this genocide is taking place. Weird how China lets foreign news networks into the place where they're committing a genocide, yeah? It's almost like there isn't a genocide going on at all. The BBC works extra hard to throw as much shade as possible against China, but still comes up completely empty. It's worth going through the whole video and showing how badly the West wants to convince people that China is committing a genocide, so that they can justify going to war against China. This is the best they can do, and it's an embarrassment. Let's enjoy.
China used to deny that these places exist.
No, they didn't. They denied the existence of concentration camps. You can see why there would be some confusion in China. Oh, you mean these schools? No, bud, come and do a documentary if you want.
But now we're being given a tour. The message? These are schools, not prisons.
Dig the BBC's choice of music here? Yeah, I need a deeply unsettling, sinister vibe. Like we're supposed to be deeply suspicious of what's going on to really scare old people who don't know where China is.
他们受到一定的极端思想感染以后，为了就是把自己思想里面的极端思想。
So China is dealing with Islamic extremism, specifically from a group called the East Turkesian Islamic Movement. This group has launched attacks in China, killing people with machetes, setting off car bombs, beheading people. One attack in particular left about 150 dead after a group of men attacked a transit station with knives and machetes. Religious extremism is a serious problem, and it has serious consequences in the region, and China is attempting to deal with it.
But the more we ask, have you been convicted of a crime?
What's the mistake? What's the context of this person being here? We never find out. We're just supposed to assume she's here illegitimately. The spooky music tells us so.
How often are you able to pray here?
国家法律规定学校公共场所，公共场所不能从事宗教活动。
This law, incidentally, is the same as one you'd find in most schools throughout the West. Again, we're supposed to forget that and put China on some higher standard of ethical thinking.
The more evidence we try to gather of our own.
Where are they here? What are they even filming? This guy could literally just be saying, "Hey man, I don't want to be filmed."
The more questions there are.
Yeah, it'd be great if you actually did interviews with those people and showed them to us, instead of cherry-picking one-liners you think emphasizes the point you're trying to get across, which is obviously that we should be scared of China. Literally the spooky one note while driving into the facility like it's a horror movie. Ugh. They have specifically chosen the word camps. You can't call these re-education centers or education facilities extremist de-escalation factories. No, it has to be camps. Places where people have to concentrate hard in camps. You know, concentration camps. Bit on the nose, BBC.
As hundreds of thousands of Muslims disappear into giant secure facilities.
Gotta love the word disappear to describe people who are visible and you talk to. The BBC has been given the opportunity to demystify what's happening and is actively choosing to maintain the mystery. The mystery from the BBC's perspective is, how do we convince people there's a genocide going on?
China has begun taking a few selected journalists inside.
And diplomats, and an invitation to the UN. Don't worry about those, though. The word selected is so specifically selected here, as if China doesn't expect the BBC to smear them completely.
This is what it wants the world to see.
This is called juxtaposition. Set us up with something creepy and weird, a slow van ride into an imposing facility with deep, scary music, and then jump over to something happy and festive with joyous music, giving it the effect of being grotesque. The statement, "This is what it wants the world to see," is ominous, and a self-indictment of the BBC. They aren't here to clear up people's concerns or demystify this situation. They're here to maintain a narrative that China is evil. The BBC is acting in bad faith, which is hardly surprising.
Offered up as proof that these are not prisoners, but students. Willingly being guided away from extremism.
This shot is so pathetic. How dare they have security cameras? Every American and British school on the planet has security cameras. Obviously done to hit that conservative grandma right in the gut.
Is it your choice to be here?
是您自己选择过来的吗？
就是，我以前因非法法律意识淡薄，被感染了极端主义和恐怖主义思想的影响。村委会的孙静发现，他对我说：“这么好的学校，你可以去参加。”
Let's have more interviews from more people. Like, this guy says he's here willingly, right? So keep interviewing people and, like, release 100 of these interviews, right? You're there, you're talking to these people. Instead, we're going to get 4 lines from this guy and then just move on and never see him again.
Always in the background, government officials watch over every interview.
So? There's a film crew in their school, bud. Of course they're there. It wouldn't be different in Britain. And it's really sad that you're pointing it out as if we're supposed to be alarmed by it. Oh, yeah, there's a film crew filming their students in their school. Yeah, they're gonna be there.
And this is how thoughts are transformed. Long hours of rote learning Chinese.
What? No, this is how you teach a large group a language they don't know. Teaching people the local language allows them to actually communicate with the wider public and join the larger economy. It's extremely useful and helps isolated people who are at high risk of turning to extreme terrorism not be isolated.
The study of China's tightening restrictions on religion.
Ugh. This is outright misinformation, right? The word tightening here is perfect if you're trying to convince people China is evil. China allows freedom of religion unless your religion wants to murder people. Is the BBC saying we should allow murderous death cults to spread freely? Is that what they mean by tightening restrictions?
And the replacing of faith and cultural identity with a different loyalty.
Again, China allows freedom of religious expression. There's Uighur festivals in China. You can find dozens of videos on YouTube. They're easy to find. This man isn't having his religion replaced. You can learn many things about many different cultures and religions, especially of, like, the one you live in, right? Which is China.
I love the Communist Party of China, this man has written.
If the phrase was, "I pledge allegiance to the flag," or "God save the Queen," or something like that, that would be fine, though. No one would care about that at all. Wouldn't make the cut. Communism!
These are places where adults wear uniforms.
Oh no, adults wearing uniforms. I bet when this guy goes to work, he wears a suit, and all the other guys around him are constantly wearing suits, and nobody's like, brr, brr, brr about it.
And where they don't go home at the end of the day.
You're going to see at the end of this documentary, a bunch of people literally leave this facility and go home at the end of the day. Like, this documentary disproves itself, and here it is immediately doing it.
But sleep up to 10 a room, sharing a toilet.
Listen to how hard he's trying to convince you that these are inhuman conditions. This is like a flop house or a hostel that I'm looking at. I've spent time in places that look like this. Like, There are people traveling like miles and miles and miles, and they don't have a place to live, and they don't have a house, right? And so here's a facility where they can flop down and sleep here if they can't find accommodations outside of the school.
With no idea how many months or years it will be before they can return to their families.
Listen to how the BBC just assumes this is a prison and assumes that you assume that it's also a prison, so that you're supposed to be completely distrustful of all of this. When what I'm seeing here is like, if this is a prison, then every boarding school in America is a prison.
If they don't want to come, then what happens?
这个我没碰见过，但是我们会积极引导他。
It isn't a place where people have to come, obey the rules, stay until you allow them to leave. Sound more like a prison, even if it's a prison in which you can do some art.
你指的监狱是这个地方，你觉得这监狱有画画的监狱吗？我不知道你说的监狱是什么样的监狱，这我们这儿确确实实就是一个培训中心。
I think a definition of a prison isn't about what happens inside.
这个画画只是它的一部分。
It's whether you can leave or not.
这是他自己选择的一部分，但主要还是通过学习国语、学习法律、学技能，通过这个来完成。
I would like to see more interviews like this. It's weird that the BBC went here and talked to everyone and has given us 10-second sound bites, which they're obviously using to foment distrust in the viewer. Why doesn't the BBC ask one of the students, "Are you free to leave?" There's a reason they don't.
We find some graffiti that reads, "Oh my heart, don't break." We've decided not to use the image to protect whoever wrote it.
The implication here is that someone wrote, "Oh my heart, don't break," because they're in the middle of a genocide. This could also be someone going through a breakup, or who just had a family member die, or hey, maybe they're lonely because they just traveled a long distance and they don't know anybody. There's all kinds of reasons someone would write this, but for sure, it's gotta be because they're being genocided.
Over the past few years, a vast network of high-security facilities has been built across China's western region of Xinjiang, surrounded by high walls, barbed wire, and watchtowers.
China is constantly building. It's part of the success of the country. China has spent billions of dollars to build up the Xinjiang region recently, including economic and cultural policies in order to help minority groups like the Uighurs. But yeah, aerial shots of buildings are spooky with the little tapping that they do and the little like boo. Yeah, I'm really impressed, BBC.
But in some of the places we're being taken to, the satellite images show that the internal security fencing and what look like watchtowers were taken down shortly before the tours for journalists began. And empty exercise yards have been transformed into sports facilities.
Oh no, guys, the Chinese didn't build things all at once. They build things steadily over time. This fencing could have been to keep people out of a construction zone. We don't even know anything about it. We just assume it's a security fence. When were these pictures even taken? Did they go back into Google Maps archive and pull up some unfinished projects? Looks like.
On full display when we visit. But if these are show camps, what might that say about the places we're not given access to?
Like, we're seriously going to spend time speculating? You've been given enormous access here to hundreds of people and a facility. I'd love to hear more interviews, please. I'd love to hear more from Chinese officials, please. No? Wild speculation and aerial shots of unfinished building projects? Okay, BBC, you do you.
With their watchtowers and barbed wire still in place, they look much less like schools. And we're much less welcome.
Again, where are you? Are you at a literal prison? Like, China has, like, literal prisons like every other place in the world, right? But we have no idea where you are. We know nothing about this kind of place. All we know is that you've shown some barbed wire fencing, which exists everywhere in the world, and have a guy putting his hand in your camera's face, which, like, You can get that here too, bud.
All of this, China says, is a response to decades of sporadic separatist violence.
Sporadic is again a well-chosen word. Just a smattering, nothing to worry about, just a smidge, small incidents, like when 10 men went into the transit system and killed over 100 people with machetes. Small things like that.
But Xinjiang's Muslims, the Uighurs, the Kazakhs and others are being swept up, it seems, for the mildest of beliefs and behaviours.
Well, like murdering Chinese people and attempting to create a violent separatist sect? And I gotta say over and over again, like, if this happened in America, right, do you think that we would sit these people down and teach them English, right? Or do you think we would bomb the hell out of them?
Rakima Senbei, who now lives in Kazakhstan, spent more than a year in the Chinese camp system just for having WhatsApp on her phone.
Pay attention how much time the BBC gives to this woman. They literally spent a whole lot of time in this Chinese facility, and we got, at best, a minute of interviews from random people. But this woman gets way more time than this.
Only towards the end was she in a facility resembling those we've been shown. Mostly, she was in much tougher camps, including this one.
Кісен салды да, басында кіргенде бір жеті менің аяғымда кісен жүрді. Ал енді әдетте бұлай ұрып.
So Rakima Senbei is a CIA asset. She's been central to the work of Adrian Zenz, who is part of the Radio Free Asia, as well as the Chinese Human Rights Defenders, which are both CIA operations, funded completely by the CIA. She's been caught in an enormous lie where she was claiming to have been forced sterilized. This has been completely debunked. There's a reason why the BBC isn't even willing to use that claim right here, because it's so fraudulent and so false and completely discredits her as a witness.
When you see the pictures that China is showing the world of happy Muslims studying hard, dancing even inside these facilities that they call schools, what do you think?
Ол жақсы деп жіберетіні, бұлар бізге алдын ала айтады, өйткені ондайды өзіміз өткіздік, мен өзім өткіздім басымнан сол лагерьде жатқан кезде, егер қай-қайсың аузыңнан шығатын болса, сендер бұдан да қиын жерге кетесіңдер деп алдын ала келіп ескертеді. Сол себепті жаңағы о жердегілердің бәрі қорқады да, солардың айтқаны бойынша істейді. Енді далада билеп, ән айтып деген.
For real, this is an enormous amount of time to sit down with a CIA asset that's had all of her claims discredited, right? Why couldn't we have spent that time getting more interviews from the people in the facility? Why didn't we see more of that kind of stuff? Nope, got to spend like literally 5 times the amount of time talking to a CIA asset who's lying about what's happening in the region.
Yeah.
What, one wonders, might these people have been told by the officials ahead of our visit?
You're straight up trying to convince me that China threatened these people to sing and dance for the cameras while you're putting a CIA asset in front of me? Yikes, bud. I mean, these people look like they're having fun. Like, it looks. How do you coerce people into doing this? How do you threaten people into enjoying singing and dancing, which is what I'm seeing right here? For real, nailed it. These are the best actors I've ever seen. They're under fear of forced sterilization, beatings, rapes during a full-scale genocide, but are still able to keep it together to knock this out. Damn, we gotta get our acting students over to China. That stuff works!
Then they switch from Uyghur, their mother tongue, to Chinese lyrics, written by President Xi Jinping.
So, they just outright said they were singing in their Uyghur tongue, like in their mother tongue. and now they're going to sing a Chinese song. So much for the eradication of their culture, right? Like, they're singing in Uyghur, they're speaking in Uyghur, and then they move over into Chinese because they're also trying to learn Chinese, right? Genocides involve the eradication of all of that. You remove their entire culture from the conversation, and here they are, like, singing in choreographed, like, ways right in front of your face. Where's the genocide? This is like Sunday school. I went to Sunday school. It was like this, right?
They've been convicted of no crime, faced no trial. But we're told China now believes it can determine their guilt in advance.
It's not about determining guilt, bud. What a terrible way to frame what's happening. These people are in situations where they can be heavily influenced by known terrorist groups and extremist elements in the society. China has built a facility to let people escape those conditions, and people are using them, unsurprisingly.
没有去杀人的时候，但他已经表现出一种特征，很可能这个人，在过几个星期他去杀人。那么我们是等他犯罪之后，来处理呢，还是说最好在他进行犯罪活动之前，就制止他？
重要的问题，我从一个，走向犯罪边缘的一个人，一个轻微的违法犯罪分子，我回到了正常的社会状态，成了一个遵纪守法的公民。
So you spoke with members from the Xinjiang Foreign Affairs Office and the Xinjiang Propaganda Department and gave them together less time than Rakima Senbi, CIA asset. More interviews, BBC, unless your goal is to make things worse instead of better.
这边请，这是我们的餐厅服务实训班。
Pre-criminals in need, we're told, of job training.
主要培训学员铺床叠被、打扫卫生。
How long does it take to learn how to make a bed?
有些学员是1-2个月就可以学会，有些学员3-4个月，最多的4个月就学会了。
Just to learn to make the bed, 4 months?
那个4个月的是特别少数，但是我们大多数学员就是2个月左右就学会。
Look how bewildered this guy is. This is how detached he is from how things actually are. These people live in terrible conditions. Like, all they've known is war, right? Like, the invasion of Iraq happened in 2001. It's been 20 years of their region just being blown up. They're being radicalized and separated economically. They don't know how to make a bed. This training is helping them. It's extremely obvious if you take off your colonial glasses.
咱们是为了改变我们学员里面的宗教极端思想，这样咱们的学员结业以后就可以直接到就业岗位去就业。
We would call that brainwashing.
没有那个
Brainwashing? For real, bud? Brainwashing? Like, are you dumb? Were you brainwashed at school? Did they brainwash you when you went to university? Have you been brainwashed by going into a facility and learning new skills?
完全改变他们的思想，我们就是为了让他们思想上的极端这个因素去除掉。
Yeah, like, people can have multiple thoughts, bud. Like, and if one of those thoughts is, I should join a gang and stab people to death, maybe let's talk about it at least?
We're told that everyone gets 1 night's home leave every week.
Oh, so like a boarding school then, yeah? Like, huge genocide happening here, bud. Just like the Holocaust up in here. Yeah, like at Auschwitz, how they let the Jews stop their forced labor and go home every day, right? Like, yeah, man, this is exactly like the Holocaust.
With different groups of students going on different days. Later, we find ourselves at the school gate at exactly the right time. One final question. I'm wondering why we don't see any students leaving or even preparing to leave.
就刚才我说了8点。
So in the next few minutes they will leave.
有的就是今天可能是咋说呢？有的天有回家的，有的没有回家的。
I mean, that seems a little odd. I mean, when we spoke earlier, you said that people left every day.
I mean, talk about splitting hairs here, right? Sometimes they leave, sometimes they don't. There's beds, buds. Sometimes I'll sleep at school. Sometimes I'll go to my mom. Sometimes I'll go to a friend.
Our government minders call the principal over.
They know the BBC is going to twist and contort everything they say, and they know what the stakes of this actually are. They understand that the Americans want to invade and destroy them, right? And they know that they have to show that what they're doing is not a genocide, but actually attempting to address a serious issue, right? The stakes could not be higher for these guys, and they're trying really hard. And the BBC tries to twist this as hard as it can, and it fails.
With our official tour now finished, we decide to return uninvited to one of the facilities we've already been shown. To our surprise, we find a large group of men waiting silently in rows just inside the gate. We should definitely follow them. And then the buses start to arrive. Let's follow that bus. It is evidence that some people are given home leave. But it's also an insight into the scale of the system. This bus is full of men from just one village.
Can't win, can they? The BBC shows up, unannounced, wagging their dicks like they own the place, and what do they see? Exactly what they were told they were going to see. People leave the facility and go home, or go to a friend's place, or have the freedom to do what they want in the city. The commentary? Look at the scale of this operation! Yeah, bud, they're dealing with Islamic extremism peacefully. It takes effort. They're taking all of the energy that we put into building bombs and dropping it on people into actually attempting to resolve the issue peacefully somehow.
Where it disappears into a government compound. The men, it seems, are processed here before finally being given their freedom for the night, heading home on foot.
So they're released into the general public, right? Genocidal. Man, I've never seen a more brutal genocide, except literally every other genocide ever. Like, I really do think that to call what you're seeing a genocide here, like if this is the basis of your decision making, oh boy, we gotta have a pretty serious conversation, I think.
For a few hours, they can leave this behind. Long after dark, the lights still burn. And the sound of thoughts being transformed echoes late into the night.
Yeah, but it's called a night school, right? Like, look how hard they're trying to convince us that this is sinister, right? Like, oh, I have been to night classes. I've been to night school. Is this some horrible thing that I'm supposed to condemn China over? Should we put sanctions on them and bomb them over this? This is the best the BBC could do to contort what is obviously a training and education facility into a genocide. You know what I saw here? I saw a government actually attempting to address a serious problem in its society the best way that it can. I'm not seeing an attempt to wipe away an entire culture. I'm seeing an attempt to de-radicalize violent extremism in their culture. I'm seeing China attempt to give people training and skills like how to make your bed and how to speak Chinese. I'm not seeing them try to replace Islam as their religion, but to include Islam in Chinese culture. It's perfectly reasonable to say, you can be Muslim, just don't blow up our people. And even if you're still sitting there claiming that what you've seen is unethical, what's the alternative? Let's be real, just for a moment. Accept that the claim that this is unethical. What's the alternative? I know what the American solution is. Does blowing up cities offend you less than teaching people songs about China? The Americans are lying directly to us about the Uighur genocide, and here's the report to prove it. The reality is that China is facing its problems head-on, and it's working. Organizations like the BBC are doing everything they can to try to discredit this project and the nation of China, and they fail. If you've made it here, please subscribe and like the video. Thanks for watching. Good luck. We're gonna need it.